Welcome back to Call Your Coven Practical Advice for Nonsensical Times. My name is Bee, my pronouns are she, they, and I am the resident numerologist.
My name is Jeanna. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the resident astrologer.
And my name is Meg. My pronouns are they, she, and I'm the resident tarot reader.
And it's August, and Meg had a great idea for a conversation that I was like, what is it? I don't remember. My brain is dead.
I mean, it was a very small idea, so I think we can build on it and take it where it wants to go and bring whatever we want kind of into it. But the thought was thinking about the professionalizing of what we do. And I think that can be, my tarot business, Gina's astrology work, Bee's numerology work, etc. But also kind of the professionalizing of craft more broadly. Like we are all writers, we have all been published, in with various publishers. We have all, we all have newsletters. We do this podcast, and I think I was mostly thinking about the kinds of magic that can be done, but also the kinds of boundaries and just kind of the ways that when you start to share your practice, creative, spiritual, and otherwise, with other people, how that sort of impacts your own relationship with the things that you might keep private or not talk about publicly, the things that you do decide are okay to share, and how you navigate that. So that's kind of what I was thinking about in terms of like professional witchery slash craft slash creative work. But I'm also happy to, be doing something else. We're talking about something else.
No, that's such a juicy well to dive into.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did we all decide to go pro? That might be a good starting point because it also might be a do as I say, not as I do. At least it is in my case. So,
I mean, do you want to tell your story first?
Yeah, I mean, astrology was never part of the plan. I got extreme. I had a also brief stint that shall never be discussed, as doing tarot professionally in like 2015-ish, 2016-ish. I was doing like live stuff on Periscope or whatever the fuck it was called. I was doing it because I was obsessed with how tarot had helped me, and so then I started doing it with others, but I quickly realized that like giving readings was not going to be a sustainable form of income, and I also did not like doing readings for other people as much as I thought I would. So I stopped doing that pretty quickly. I had a real problem in the 2010s with making a career out of just hobbies. So I think number one, and it took a long time for me to become really aware of that, and like many businesses later, like I still have debt over a lingerie business that I ran for 4 years. That should have been a hobby, but I made it a whole thing anyway. I was finally moving into what I wanted to be doing, which was freelance writing in the late 2010s. Like I was working on Heretic behind the scenes. I was very active on Twitter when it was still good, and I was getting into astrology. And so I ended up tweeting a lot about astrology and the intersection with art and the intersection with writers. And those were the days when an editor who you'd worked with, say at Electric Lit or Lit Hub, would just reach out to you over DM to make what you had done, series of tweets about into an article. And so Electric Lit did that with me, and it turned into like what your author horoscope says about you. And I based descriptions of the sun signs on famous authors who had that sun sign, started doing seasonal horoscopes for Electric Lit. And astrology just kind of started picking up really quickly. Like it was very accidental that I ended up doing it. And then because I was a writer, am a writer, largely in community with other writers and artists, and I started a newsletter about like astrology for writers. The newsletter has been going for 7 years, and this was where it was different from like my stints with tarot and lingerie. People were very responsive to it, and I started getting asked to do a lot and invited to do a lot and sought out for a lot in a way that had never happened to me before. And I was like, oh, this is a door that is very open. Did a mentorship with Rebecca Gordon when I was looking into professionalizing. And then, I was kind of transitioning out of corporate full-time work, but part of that transitional process was working for astrology apps where I blended my writing creatively, astrological knowledge, and the fact that my background was in marketing for Sanctuary. And then I was the director of content for the Channy app. Like that was my last full-time salaried job. And then I went full-time in 2021. But this is, I think, the important piece. I did not go full-time in astrology, and client stuff was never the bulk of my income with it. But I did not go full-time until like almost 4 years after I had first started writing about it more publicly. Like it was a very gradual onboard, so that I had the audience and so that I had the network to support myself. Because it takes a long time to build a practice as a solo practitioner. Incidentally, I will say, like, where I'm at now, I'm permanently close to one-on-one clients, which has made such a difference in my creative life this year. It's been great. I also know for years I did teach astrology 101 type stuff. That is available as an evergreen downloadable class on my website. But like my public facing work now is much more a blending of astrology and witchcraft with writing specifically. The newsletter is the most astrology thing I do, as well as the fact that I'm writing a book based on the newsletter. Finished my Venus chapter today. So, but that's how I got started. It was like very accidental. Is this a thing? I was not new to the idea of self-employment because I had again made my hobbies into jobs before, but it was a very slow onboarding. And I had a lot of internalized stuff I had to kind of get over in order to grow my business.
Bee, do you want to tell your story?
Yeah, sure. I think I have to start this conversation though by saying that I was raised by someone who had very strict ideas about what it meant to be professional or
Mm,
amateur. And then another parent who was a professional, and did a lot of stuff for the love of it. And so I don't know that I ever really intended to be a professional spiritual worker at all. And in some ways, this conversation is meeting me in a really funny place because I technically have new and different career ambitions now
mhm,
in psychology that are very much swimming in the same soup and adjacent to this work. But I'm not full-time anything other than like being a student and a human being. I
mhm,
honestly feel like I'm in full-time therapy at this point
mhm.
in
I
Yeah.
time
mean,
between school and my own work. But uh, yeah, I have always had these practices. And I think, Gina, what you said about I was obsessed with how tarot had helped me and I wanted to provide that for other people. I think that's probably at the heart of a lot of spiritual practitioners' professional journeys, of saying this is something that I really connected with and that gave me a lot of tools and positive growth opportunities and perspectives and ways of thinking about the world. And now I want to help others in that way. So I kind of always had these practices and beliefs for myself, but I didn't read tarot for anyone else until maybe 10 years, almost 10 years after, like professionally speaking, like 10 years after I got my own deck. I went on an acting retreat in Costa Rica in 2015, like 2014 or 2015. And I ended up reading cards for almost every person on that trip. And it was pretty impromptu. Like I didn't even make an offering, other than like talking about having the cards or people saw me with the cards. And those are still some of like the most magical readings that I've ever done was in that space. And again, for the love of it. So when I went freelance as a content creator, like a video, I had this whole life in production. And I was pretty Jane of all tradesy in terms of I would produce, I could shoot, I could edit, and was having this big moment of spiritual crisis myself and reconnecting with tarot and in a creative sense and like bringing it more into like a daily practice in my own life. And so I think I honestly started an Instagram, and it wasn't me, it was like something else. And I was just posting pretty pictures of tarot cards and writing little blurbs about them online. And for me, it was always really the community. Like I started meeting people online, I started talking to people. Then it felt weird that it was under some other name, but that was also kind of to like separate it from my life. And then at some point, I was like, fuck it, I'll just be a whole weirdo on the internet. And so I brought the tarot content over to my Bee Scolnick Instagram. And it wasn't until numerology didn't really kind of come onto the scene until 20 publicly, I mean, until 2020. Yeah, 2020. And that was kind of intentional. And this is the part where I'm like, okay, this was me. I felt like there were a lot of tarot readers in the space, but there weren't many people talking about numerology. So I kind of niched down
Yeah.
and leaned on this other interest of mine in order to say something a little different in the space, but still be able to talk about the same things. And so it's kind of grown from there. Like from that work, I did have a publisher reach out and say, "Is there a book in here?" And I wrote my first book, The Witch's Book of Numbers, and then from there, was really in community with other people who are working on other projects and have brought me on board. That's how I ended up getting my agent. And in there, I was always doing readings and teaching classes, and a lot of them you can find online. And, for many years, that was kind of the bulk of my practice. But I will say, I don't think that I've ever been full time with witch work. I think I've always had to supplement with other things. I've never, ever in my life sold out a reading launch. Um, and that's been something that I've had feelings about over the years as well, of like, I'm feelings of ego hurt, like I'm really putting myself out here and making this offering. And, you know, it obviously not crickets. I love all of my clients, but like, I don't perceive myself to be having the same success as like other people in the space. I still have many goals in my newsletter. I would say that I largely do this for the love of it. I truly do. Like most of the content that I've always put out and continue to put out is not paid or like definitely nowhere near full time. And I think that's okay for me. And that's a really new, like radical acceptance. I think it obviously has to do with some of the life and career pivots that I am taking. But it also, like for me, when things become work, they lose a real something something for me. And I consider myself to be a deeply spiritual person through and through. It's just like part of who I really do consider myself to be. And it's the longest relationship, spirit and creativity and whatever we call this. Like it's my longest lasting relationship and my most intimate one. And so, yeah, I have a lot of goals and a lot of like human desires for things to be bigger or more professional or moving faster than they are. But hopefully that's like a different side of things. Like I love that we all obviously we've yet to hear Meg's story, but I'm sure there are major differences in your story too, Meg. And so, yeah, that's my soupy spiel.
No, I love it. I'm glad you both shared it. And I'm glad you mentioned something that I think is worth talking about. I can share my story first or that might come back around, but I think thinking about like what the goals are, like what the aims are, like why we professionalize and also like what it actually means to professionalize in general. Because I do think that there are different goals around it and there is a lot of ego around it, I think, especially if you're trying to make money.
I'm gonna say I want to put a pin, Meg, we're gonna
Mhm.
go with you in a minute, but I want to put a pin in the relationship between being professional and being
Mhm.
full time, and
Yeah.
does it support your life, and do you
Yeah.
Mhm.
want it to support your life? Because
Mhm.
I think sometimes the visibility of spiritual practitioners online, it's easy to assume that, or writers online, it's easy to be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that's how they're making all their money. That is
Hmm.
often not the case.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important, yeah, pin just to come back to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
totally.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you can be like, I do consider myself a professional, even
Yeah.
Yeah.
though it's
Yeah.
not full-time work. So there's a
Hmm.
decoupling of kind of all of these concepts as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I started with, I have always been living in this crux of like rigidity around what does it mean to be professional, and amateurs being looked down on. And so I've written about it before. It's been something that I've talked about a lot, is the idea that like being professional is tied to money, but does not always have to be. And it doesn't mean that that is like your main profession either. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get into it. Meg, take it away.
Yeah, no, I think these are really important distinctions to be making, like what we even mean by these words, and also like what assumptions are made around some of this language and around some of these realities. Because yeah, I think I can only really talk about my professionalization of tarot in the context of like my relationships in my life,
And
because
house chart
I
ruler.
yeah, seventh house chart ruler for real. But yeah, it's like I got married to my first spouse, my husband Steve, in 2009. I was 23, and so was he, and we were babies, and we were just stumbling around trying to, figure out how to survive our lives. And I went through a lot of changes. I learned a lot of things about myself. I got a master's degree in food studies, and I was largely working for myself in a freelance capacity for like a decade as a freelance photographer. I worked as I like reviewed hotels and restaurants. I worked for like Oyster, which was purchased by TripAdvisor, and so I was like getting flown to all these places and like photographing all these like wild extravagant like resorts and stuff, which sounds really luxurious. And I always like to tell people that I photographed 30 resorts in 2 weeks once in Jamaica, and it was absolutely bananas, like just the amount of work that you're doing. But it was cool. But I was able to really take those kinds of jobs. I was shooting for Eater, I was shooting for the Boston Globe, I was doing some really cool things. But it was because I had a partner that made a good like tech salary. He worked in private equity. He went back and got his master's degree as well, which is what brought us to New York. And then he was making really good money. And so I was not in a position where I had to be making enough money to support myself by myself. I was able to like we didn't need me to be working at all. So what it meant was that I got to pursue a lot of really cool creative passion projects, and I did get paid for those things, but I wasn't getting paid very much. And so I built this photography portfolio and this writing portfolio and this like events production work portfolio, based purely off the love of the game, like you were saying, because I wasn't having to take other positions. I didn't have to say yes to anything I didn't want to say yes to. And so what that meant was that when I started reading tarot in 2016, again, it was purely for the love of the game. I didn't even think I would tell anybody that I read tarot, which is very funny now. But yeah, it was a similar story. I was reading for myself. I was keeping it pretty private. A couple of friends in my life knew that I was reading cards, and they wanted to kind of get back into it, or were interested in it. And so when I mentioned, because I was a photographer and Instagram used to be really great, I was like, I'm going to just make an Instagram to use as my tarot journal. And I think I'm going to make it private. And the couple of friends that I had that were interested in learning along with me, were like, can you not make it private so that we can follow you and we can see your cards on our feed and remember to read for ourselves? And I was like, sure, no one's ever going to see it, so that's fine. But because I was learning and I was very transparent about being new to tarot and learning, most of what I was posting was questions. I was sharing like my questions about the cards, I was sharing my observations, and I was kind of asking people what they saw in the cards and what they thought about the cards. And so I would get a lot of engagement. At the time, I didn't care. I was just excited to meet people. Like you were saying, it was just about the community.
Yeah.
But people were sharing what they saw in the cards and how they interpreted the cards. And I was meeting all these people and just having a blast, like talking about tarot with people on Instagram. Fast forward to 2018 when I went to Autostraddle's A Camp, which is the thing they used to do, which is like a queer sleepaway 5 night summer camp, which is where I met Gina, as well as a lot of other people that are in my life now. And I had my tarot cards with me. I'd only been reading for 2 years, and so I would sit under the trees and I would pull cards. And my cabin leader, my camp counselor, who is now my dear friend Heather Hogan, and was a senior editor at the time at Autostraddle, started following me on Instagram and was like, "Your Instagram's really great. Would you ever consider writing about tarot for Autostraddle?" And I had pitched some personal essays and, hadn't gotten anything and I didn't know anything about anything. So I was like, "Oh, sure. I guess I could pitch. It'd be cool to be published by Autostraddle." I didn't know that pitching a column is kind of a ballsy thing to do, and sometimes not knowing things is the best. So I pitched Taroscopes. I was like, I mean, as long as you don't mind that I've only been reading for a few years, like, and it'll be a lot of questions and like discovery oriented. And Heather thought that was great and shared it with some of the other editors, and they also thought it was great. So in January 2019, I started writing Taroscopes for Autostraddle, which at the time had like 3 million views per month or something. My Instagram exploded. I did end up putting my name on it, and also calling. I was 3 a.m. Tarot by then, but I finally put my first name on it.
I remember that conversation because we
And
were having that conversation.
yeah, we were having that conversation because I was like, I guess I got to put my name on this so that people know that I'm the person who's writing these things.
And I was like,
Um,
yes, yes.
yeah, Jenny was horrified. But that felt like a really major step in my professionalization because now I was getting paid to write tarot content. My audience expanded massively. I was getting like thousands of new followers each month because people were reading my column. And yeah, I started getting pitches from other places, getting asked to do things, and then people started asking me when I was going to write a book. And I was like, "What are you talking about? I've been reading for like a couple of years. I don't really know what I'm doing." Um, but I was having so many people that liked my approach and were telling me that they liked that I was asking questions, that I wasn't coming from this place of ego or, saying that I knew everything about the cards that I've been reading for a million years. They liked that it felt like I was learning along with them. So for NaNoWriMo, is that how we say it? Like at the time, that still felt like a good place to be. So I did NaNoWriMo and I wrote the first draft of Finding the Fool for NaNoWriMo in November 2019 to see if it was a book. And 50,000 words later, 100,000 words later, it sure was a book. So that started the process of, I went to look for an agent. I worked on my book proposal, which Gina helped with. And so it was all just like kind of fun and games for a long time. But in 2020, my husband at the time, we decided to separate. We were one of the many couples in COVID that were like, wait a minute, maybe we'd be happier separately. So in 2020, when we decided to split up, even though he did have a big salary, and so I was going to get some spousal support for a little bit, I was like, shit. It's 2020. I'm not doing my photography work anymore because it's all restaurants and events, and those things are not happening right now. What can I do to support myself? And I did apply to a million jobs. Tarot, like making 3 a.m. tarot a business that could fully support my life in a very expensive city was not my initial go-to. Even though it was the dream, I was like, I don't do a lot of readings, I'm mostly writing my newsletter and teaching classes. But having that spousal support for a couple of years and doing a lot of magic and talking to a lot of people, and writing books and doing the thing, I have been able to very slowly, intentionally turn it into a business that does actually support my life. And so it helps that, Gina and I share expenses. We live together, obviously. So like, I'm not having to pay for everything myself. We are able to split our rent and we split utilities and split, food costs and all of that. But yeah, it's been a long process. And I think if I didn't have all of that time with Autostraddle and, 25,000 followers on Instagram and like all of these things that have happened along the way, professionalizing in a way that meant that it could support my life would have been, I don't know how I would have done it because readings have never really been the backbone of my business either. I rarely sell out when I open for readings. Most people come to me for classes, and for writings. But for me, it was very much about the finances of it. If I should be doing something else, then give me a job. And it wasn't happening, but I kept getting new opportunities for tarot work. And so I finally took the hint and was like, okay, let's see if we can make this work. And
I
Yeah.
think this is an important like distinction though that like that we've all shared our beginnings and that we like to distinguish kind of what you're saying be the money piece from professional and
Hmm.
which is I'm going to be very real. I use the word full time I use the full-time phrase to emphasize that this is my money. It's
Yeah.
also why I'm so transparent.
Yeah.
As someone who like just came from like my dad dug ditches for a living. My dad subsistence hunted to feed us when I was little. Like like the idea of my parents helping even when I was still talking to them was like them sending a $20 bill in the mail and that was basically what they could afford, which is huge. So like to me, I think I just coming at this also then to add the class feature, I'm also very obsessed with like finding out, okay, how are you doing the money of it though? Because I'm here full time and I want to know. And it's very like it took me forever to learn this in lingerie when I was working in that in the early 2010s. And then it still took me a while to figure it out with spiritual practitioners because my default assumption coming in, just because of how I grew up, was like, oh, if you're doing this publicly and this is your job, then it's your income. And that's not necessarily true. And that's okay. But I think that being aware of what our own assumptions and perceptions are is just so vital if you are someone who's thinking about turning pro.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I think it does. And
Yeah,
it's why I feel like it's really important to share that like I really did start building 3am tarot and learning tarot and like building all these things out while I had spousal support. Like and so I
yeah,
wasn't there wasn't pressure to like give a certain amount of readings so that I could make rent or you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that was not part of it. I truly was just doing it because I loved it. And then the professionalizing
yeah.
was something that happened later
It's
when I was
interesting
like
though,
I gotta
because
make
it's
money.
like I think about like when you started calling yourself pro, because
Hmm.
I would have considered myself a professional astrologer before I was just doing my practice full time. And
Hmm.
I think that's again, it's like the full-time money distinction or part-time money distinction, whatever, is like it can be different than pro.
Yeah.
Like, and because yeah, I was doing like I 2018, 2019, I was writing for horoscopes that other people read and took advice by. And I think that's professional. But I
Yeah.
had a different, but it wasn't paying my bills. And at the time, you know, I still had a salaried job that meant that I could just fuck around and write horoscopes and like when I was procrastinating from my work. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're talking about something that I do spend a lot of time thinking about, which, Gina, you've already said, like monetizing your hobbies, turning everything into a business. I
Yeah.
think a lot about like, yeah, I obviously believe that spiritual witch work, artists, creatives, everyone should be paid for their work. And I also think that it's unique. Like, I don't know any engineers that are like designing things in their free time for the love of it, quite like people, like these are life and self-sustaining practices that are also a trade you can learn. And so I like the full time to denote money and saving professional for like something, a certain level of time, education, expertise, experience.
I think professional has it's a squishy in between. You know, we have a friend who we won't put them on blast in front of everyone, but they, you know, are not a professional ballerina now, but they have professional ballerina experience because they were Clara in the Nutcracker for the Boston Ballet when they were in elementary school. And it's like, okay, like that was professional
Right.
and you have professional experience in shows, but it's, you know, I don't know. I think there are so many ways to tease that
Yeah.
apart.
I have been a professional photographer. I don't really describe myself that way anymore. I still have that level of like skill and ability, but I haven't gotten paid to take pictures in a minute, but I also use those skills in my business all the time. So it's very squishy.
Yeah. I think it's just an interesting thing that we even have to be making these delineations. And I think that's why I brought up like other, engineers or other coders or I don't know, like skills that people have that you can make a career on. Like the fact that we even have to talk about can we just do it for the love of the game, or like do we need to have make full-time money? Like it's just more of the starving artists. Like, why don't we support these professions as legitimate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have
I
messy feelings in this space.
No, I
It's messy.
agree. And I think that part of it too, I think part of why I feel passionately about being so transparent about money is also because even before I was in more witchcraft spaces, more of the occult, tarot, astrology, I had grown up in like country rural churches. Pastors are kind of on par with witches and astrologers and tarot readers in terms of income. My ex-husband, who, I wrote about in Heretic, his father was a pastor, had been for decades. The church really did not pay enough. It was a dying church. The money was not there, and he worked as a UPS guy. That was like what he made income with, right? Like that's what he financed, like how he supported his family was working for UPS, like night shifts. It was really brutal. I don't like my ex-husband and I don't like his family, but I'll acknowledge that. Like his dad was phenomenally hardworking and like doing this insane graveyard with UPS and then going to church and preaching on Sunday morning. And I don't know, there's a way I think in what you're getting at be with like the creative and spiritual impulses are so vital to humanity and so vital to human life. And yet, because they also exist without and outside of work, like as defined under capitalism, I mean, we could talk about the undervaluing of the humanities or the undervaluing of spirit. But people who choose to make this full-time work, I think it is also that really problematic then language that gets into well, it's a calling or it's a vocation, which, is actually a through line from my growing up evangelical to now. Like, there are people across the spiritual spectrum using that line to justify not paying people, which, again, if we had universal basic income, if we had universal healthcare, this would be less important. This would be less of a conversation about money if that was true. You want to kind of get into some of the technical questions about like if people are thinking about going pro, like our experience with setting rates, or Meg, you had mentioned earlier setting boundaries about
Mhm.
what we share publicly versus what is private, like how we approach those kinds of things, especially if there's kind of the murky, you have an Instagram or you're
Mhm.
posting on Twitter and then and it's a hobby and it's fun and it's an interest and then it mushrooms into other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really valuable to think about. And I mean, there's a few layers to it, right? Because there's just like the kind of general how do you show up on the internet in 2026 when like all of these apps are scraping everything and everything's getting fed into AI and like there's so many consent and privacy concerns and everything is gross and weird and bad. But there's also like, these apps really prioritize showing your face and sharing original content and not like replicating graphics or like using the same stuff again and again. The apps want us to be showing up, bringing ourselves, and like feeding the machine. And while there are people who have very successful businesses or are not on social media, and there are other ways to like market yourself and remind people that you exist, like attention spans, I think, are at kind of an all-time low. And reading comprehension and literacy is at an all-time low. And it's very hard when there's so much going on. And when the news is so dark and when, our government's trying to merge with Israel and there's just all this shit happening that's fucking fucked. And so I think there's a lot of noise. And so we do have to be marketing ourselves and showing up on the internet and reminding people of our work and of our offers and what we do and how we differentiate ourselves and what our niche is and all the but it's I think it's all tangled up in all of that, right? It's not just as simple as these are my boundaries for my business. It's also like what kind of information do I want to be out in public versus what do I want to put on my newsletter versus how much personal information or personal stories and narratives and tender feelings and like squishiness do I want to share? How much of myself do I want to let people see? And also like how important is that to my business? Like there are parts of my business where I think it is really important for me to be vulnerable and to like share what I'm moving through or how I feel about something or what my politics are or what my health concerns are. But I have to always kind of be negotiating, is this something I'm going to put behind a paywall? Is this something I'm going to put in people's inboxes? Or is this something I'm willing to like say with my full chest on the internet, like with my face?
As well, bringing the dozens of questions.
I know. I like it's just me and thousands of an avalanche of questions at all times.
I was
Um,
going to ask if we could give some examples of what our own boundaries are
yeah.
as practitioners just for ourselves. And also like and or also if you and if either of you have, because I definitely do, things you wish you had set boundaries around or done differently that are now so structurally integral to your business that you can't unmake it, but like
Mm.
you wish you'd set that.
I do kind of want to go back to something that Meg said earlier, though, which was that we do have to like show up and put your face out there and market. I think that part of the reason why my professional business has not leveled up or met some of its goal is because I have a deep refusal to play the game in that way. And I simply will not. And it's something that is not helpful to me in this day and age. It's something that my own wife has been like, when you're ready to make a real go of it, you let me know. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to do that. Um, I can't make my marketing background work for me. I don't know if I don't know what it is. But anyway, I just wanted to be transparent about that because I think that my refusal to play the game means that I have just kind of shown up as myself in public and I don't have a lot of boundaries per se. I think there's private information that I don't share, but I am always very personal.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid of anyone knowing anything about me. I just like can't show up and tell you something every day. I don't know, like it's so weird.
Then it's exhausting. I feel
Yeah,
like even
like
people who like it, it's such a grind to like show up on social media every day or something, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think something that took me, okay, this is moving away from social media and more into like offerings. I think something that took me a really long time to set boundaries around that I wish I had set boundaries around earlier, and this actually has to do with myself. I give a lot of free time away once you get in a room with me. I, for the longest time, could not end a reading on time. Or I let people ask questions after the fact, which means we're tacking on a minimum of 10 minutes, mostly more minutes than that, of like free time with me basically. Or I would set a class for 90 minutes and go 2 hours, like I want to share what I have with you. And yet then I'm doing a ton of free labor and work. And maybe that client didn't want to stay 20 minutes late. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so boundaries around time, I think were funky for me. Still are. But I'm better at being like the end.
That's very real. I
Yeah.
will say part of the reason I asked the very leading question around boundaries we wish we had or had set that are not possible to take back, because mine is actually around my name. I wish
Mm,
I had used a pseudonym. My
mm,
first name, same. Like, I think that I had this idea that using a pseudonym or using a pen name meant that I had to be totally anonymous and I couldn't have my face or anything like that. And like now that I'm in I've been in, writing, publishing, and spirit like astrology for long enough, dude, so many people that readers, people on social, they do not know that person's name is a pen name. Their first name is their name, but their last name is not. And I've just, because people are so weird, because I have an incredibly Googleable name, it's just very easy for people to find me. I've had to be really vigilant with my online privacy. Like, I've been paying hundreds of dollars a year for Delete Me for almost 10 years because people, I don't know, Meg has seen this. People just get
It's,
weird.
they do get
I
weird.
mean, I think people can get weird with, parasociality in a lot of different ways, but for me, unfortunately, I don't know why it is. I am not famous. I don't know what it is. I am recognized on the street in New York often.
Yeah.
I know part of it is the hair, like the hair is very distinctive, but I get stopped way more than you would think.
It
Once it
happens a
happened, I
lot.
was literally walking with a friend from writers group. We were about to go in the diner, and some woman stopped me on the street and asked, "Are you Jeanna Kadlec?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I'm having this, lovely, but also I'm like, I have somewhere to be. I'm with a friend. Let me go. Like, I don't know. I used to get DMs. This was more when I was on Twitter, like, so it's a while ago now, but I used to get DMs a lot from people being like, "Oh, I think I saw you. I think I saw you." And it just weirded me out enough that I was like, I need to make myself as unfindable as possible. And the fact that I used my actual government name makes that extra hard. I don't know. And it's that in the way that it's like, I feel like, my fellow Saturn folks, they're like, you can always set a boundary, you can always take it back. But your government name is like, once it's out of the barn, it's out of the barn, and you kind of can't uninternet that. I can't unpublish that. So that's something I wish I had been more mindful of.
No, the name thing really resonates with me because Bee Scolnick is now not my government name.
Yeah.
And I'm not secret about my government name, but I've really struggled for a long time feeling like I had these different identities, and one took a lot of paperwork and the other is now a corporation under the state of California, and like, you know, what the fuck? And now there's a lot of reasons why having separation of church and state is very lovely for me and like freeing in a lot of ways. So I really understand that. And yeah, I also, my dad is a junior and he had a stage name growing up because he didn't want his dad getting phone calls
Oh,
or
sure.
like
Yeah.
looking them up in the phone book and finding his dad, not him. So he always had a public persona.
Mm.
And so he didn't even use Skolnick as a last name. Like my mom and I used it, but he didn't. And so yeah, my whole childhood, I was very used to like people calling my dad by a separate name and like mail coming in the house to like his stage name and my mom's legal name. So I think that kind of helped me realize like, oh, people can be called other things in other spaces. But yeah, I didn't have that experience myself until I got married and changed my name and then was like, huh, maybe I don't want everyone to go on this new journey with me. Like maybe we can just stick with who they know already. So tricky, tricky.
Yeah. I will say, I will put my referral link for Delete Me in the show notes because it's like 20% off or something with a referral. And it has made an enormous difference, at least in my like peace of mind. Just like people, like you're saying, like that people who know you from one particular area of life maybe can't find you. Like it's deleting your old addresses and your phone and family members and all of that kind of privacy stuff that digital white pages collect. And that's absolutely exhausting to go through.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. I also feel like low key, any woman or queer on the internet who is working on the internet kind of needs it. I think B, what you said is really key earlier. It's like I'm not sharing everything, but I'm still personal.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
very I'm like the internet is maybe getting 20 to 30% max of me actually,
Hmm.
but it is very authentic and it is very personal. There's just plenty that I don't talk about, which is also ironic given the fact that like it's weird. If you read my book, it's like you know a lot more than if you just follow me or are in my Discord. Like if you've read Heretic, it's like, oh, this bitch said a lot. Like, yeah. What about magic and boundaries though? Like spiritual practices or deity or spirit relationships? Like, I don't know. I have definitely felt a lot around that, but I don't know if that's more relevant for you guys.
Totally. Yeah, I'm really of the mindset that like the only ones that have to be okay with the share are you and the spirit. Like I know people who are like any picture of your altar like renders your altar useless. Like it is, if shared. And like I don't vibe by that. Like sometimes my altars are so beautiful, I'll stick a little picky of it in my newsletter and be like, everyone should see this. But I I have not really ever been one to like share much about my own practices or my own spell work or yeah, I mean my newsletter for sure like has the most personal shares throughout the years. My Instagram probably has the least at this point. Like I haven't posted regularly in years now. Sometimes I'll share on Discord. I really think like Coven probably knows the
Yeah.
most about me at this point, not only in terms of like what I've shared on the show, but also just like you saw me twice a month last year while going through cancer. Like
Yeah.
there was something about being very publicly bald on this platform that was
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
I'm not hiding it at all, but I am sharing it in like a very intentional space with
Hmm.
community that I have cultivated for safe purposes. And then I
Yeah.
just have to forget that this goes on YouTube and that anybody could see my bald head. Like I try not to spend too much time thinking about that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely have shared like, oh, I've been talking to this person, or like for me, my spirit relationships, like I shared a lot about Loki when I was working with Loki, and like I've been open about Hecate, and like Meg's even mailed me Hecate's stuff, and I continue now, like that's not an active relationship for me, like a very active spirit relationship, other than like we say what's up every once in a while, but I've now found that I have been asked on multiple occasions to share resources. Oh, I have resources to share, and I used these and loved these, and these are the posts that I read, or these are the books or the practices. But I feel like, yeah, I'm not really offering that information as much as I am kind of sharing little tidbits and then being open if people come to me wanting that. I'm by request only. But
I agree. I think sharing a lot on Coven and having these conversations so regularly, I've become much more open and I think just much more intuitive around where I can describe without getting into detail.
mhm.
I think, unsurprisingly, as a Saturn person, for the first few years, I was practicing astrology publicly. And even with Heretic, I really don't write about witchcraft in Heretic at all. There's a little bit about Lilith. Um, and I talk about basically getting visitations from Jesus, but I only wrote about those because I wanted them to stop. And based on my own like understanding at the time out of evangelicalism, it was very like you don't talk about these big miraculous appearances or whatever that you have with the Lord. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to share with I'm going to put this man on blast and he has to stop showing up now. And to be fair, he has stopped showing up. So that is a real nice thing. But like I remember like perversely, yeah, with Heretic, like writing about those visitations in the last chapter was actually my intentional boundary setting, not with an audience, but literally with spirit. Like, literally, you need to stop coming around. And I'm going to tell everyone your business. Like, yeah.
I wrote about Apollo this year. I guess I'm
You
open.
did. You did.
Yeah, I think I'm open.
Yeah. You both feel very transparent to me. Not like in your like sharing every single thing, but like I feel like yeah, I feel like B, you've shared a lot about different like relationships, and Gina, I feel like you've shared a lot about like here's how to do this spell, or like here's what this ritual can look like, or like here's how to, like you just sent out that newsletter about like working with spirits. Like I feel like you're both really generous in terms of like here's what I know and like here's what I can show you how to do, and here's what I have done in the past. And I mean, I don't think it doesn't feel like messy or like oversharey, but I feel like you both shared a lot of really good resources and just like, here's how this has felt for me, and both in this space and like in your own spaces. And I think that's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't share a whole lot, but I also like have very chaotic practice. I don't keep an altar. I've talked about like using jewelry and like having, certain ways that I think of myself as the altar. I'm more of like jewelry and tattoos as devotion than like regular offerings. I've talked about like having coffee with Mercury in the mornings because that's what we do. But it's very informal. I don't do a lot of ceremony. I don't do a lot of ritual. I'm much more likely to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna grab a cigarette and talk to an ancestor for 5 minutes or something." It's very like of the moment, and it's very like, "Oh, hey, let's try this." I tend to share more stuff with the Hermitage. Doing this. I'm doing this new series on like tarot beliefs and kind of figuring out what you believe about the cards and what you believe your readings are and like how that intersects with your own personal like worldview and philosophy so that you can kind of understand how your readings fit into your own sense of agency and choice. And I recorded the first one last night, and I was talking about like, here's what I believe I'm doing when I give myself a tarot reading. Here's what I believe I'm talking to. Here's what I believe about it. And that felt like something more personal than I've shared in other spaces before. So that was kind of exciting to be like, this is more personal. I'm definitely sharing more stuff here in this like very specific container behind paywall, like in this very protected environment. But yeah, I think generally here and also in the Grove, which
We do share a
we
lot more.
share a lot. We talk a lot more about our practices. But again, that's like in a really specific place with where we know everyone by name who's going to be listening to it. The Hermitage is the same thing. It's like this like very protected container where I just feel safer
Yeah.
sharing that stuff. And it's just I'm a very private person anyway, but I think it just feels more comfortable to me to be like, I know exactly the people who are going to be listening to this versus like sharing things out where I'm not sure where it could find its way.
I will
Um,
also say the Grove, when this comes out, it is going to be open for registration for the fall winter
oh yeah,
2026,
yeah,
2027. So definitely check that out. If it like
yeah.
having a very cloistered space where you talk to the same like 20 people twice a month about really vulnerable, because I think that's also part of it, is that all of the folks in the Grove are so vulnerable
Yeah.
with our live sessions. Like we
Mhm.
really have an intimate awareness of people's what they're struggling with in their spiritual practice or their creative practice or just in their lives. And so in that very reciprocal way, which I mean, this might be also what y'all are talking about reciprocity with like kind of underneath the social media or the
Yeah.
ego. It's like in spaces where there is strong reciprocity and like they are giving so much to us that it feels very safe to be vulnerable back. And like we'll record things for them every month, and it's just Meg and I talking off the cuff, and we will definitely share more aspects of our relationship
Yeah.
with people in the Grove. They really get more than anyone else does because we
Yeah.
live it together. But also it's because like I know and trust, and I mean, again, not to bring up church, but I'm like, it's like a small church group. It's
It
like
is.
I
Yeah.
know what's happening in every single one of their lives right now.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
is just such a different thing than just as you're like, as y'all have been talking about, like, here's my face, algorithm, show it
Right.
to whoever. Like,
Yeah.
those are very different spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that brings us kind of full circle around back to goals. Like
Mhm.
in professionalizing anything that has such personal roots,
Mhm.
like what are your goals with that?
Mhm.
Are you looking to make money? And again, these are all valid options, right? But like, are you looking to make money? Are you looking to make part-time money, full-time money, pocket change? What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
That will then dictate how much you have to offer, how high you want your rates to be. Like,
Mhm.
this is where the business of spirituality like really is kind of just a business. If you're a service-based provider, you are the product, so you can only work so many hours, which means you're going to
Right.
have to keep raising your rates
Mhm.
if you want to make more for, whatever. Like,
Or you then have to start looking like what I'm looking at right now is like scaling into
yeah,
anytime enrollment offers
Right.
or into like what Meg has with the Hermitage, which is an ongoing membership. And that anyway, what you're saying.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
it. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
very straightforward. business advice. And also, I will say many people are in this space talking about the business of
Yeah.
witchcraft.
Hmm.
I know, Gina, you have people that you work with. I will shout out Michelle from Holisticism has like years of classes and programs that are like, literally, do you want to do this as a business? Here are the steps to take, you know? So they are out there and like do them. But I think your goals will inform
Yeah.
what your business looks like, what you have to share from your craft, what you want to share from your craft and your process. And yeah, how you want to be meeting people, how you want to be showing up in the world. Like, this is all really valuable exploration.
I think those are great questions for people to sit with and to really
Mhm.
reflect on. My two quick practical advice pieces, which is number one, which I know that you both will at least agree with the first one. Number one, uh, there is no quick money in occultism.
Mm-mm.
There is, especially these days. I used to be able to open for readings and book out in 48 hours. That has not happened. Like, that's partly why I stopped doing one-on-ones. I was like, oh, this is no longer, with the economy in such a downturn, I was like, this is no longer a lever I can pull reliably for rent money. So why am I even doing it? So yeah, if you're like, oh, maybe I'll make supplemental there is no quick money. Platform first and then maybe money later. But the second thing, just because again, I love occultists. I love us so much. And I just want more Saturn for everyone. And I think sometimes with offers, I'm just like, this is on the business end, but I'm like, do people know that they need what you're selling? Are you using language that is identifiable to meet the problem that someone has? Like in terms of ethical sales, I feel really strongly about different things I offer because I know that they are meeting a specific need that like writers and artists know they have and want a solution for. And listen, I love our people, but sometimes I see astrologers, like witches, tarot readers, etc., out here, and I'm like, baby, who is that for? Like,
Yeah.
so that's also just my very practical hot take is like, okay, you're professionalizing. Why do you want to professionalize? Do you have something to offer? Is actually like the really Saturn underline.
But it's a really good question, and
Yeah.
it's important, and it's not just like niching down or, differentiating yourself on the market or all that shit. It's really like, what do you have to offer people,
Yeah.
and like, why are you good at this? Why are you good at this thing, and why does this thing matter to you, and like, why should people work with you?
Yeah.
Like, I know the things that I feel really strongly about, and the things that I feel like I bring to my work that I know I believe in firmly, and then also that I see the results that people are getting from working with me. Like, I feel really strongly about those things, and I just kind of keep doubling down on them,
Yeah.
because it's important to me, and it also it feels much more ethical than just being like, what can I sell right now?
Yeah.
But
100%.
yeah,
Like I'm running book deal breakthrough again, in part because people got such magical results.
yeah.
People got agents from zero to agent in 10 weeks. I'm not gonna lie. I did not expect that fully. I was like, I know this is gonna be transformative, but like I was surprised by how quickly some people got. Like, not everyone, to be clear, not everyone, not a guarantee, but some people, and I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
I also just like think that we are all in three really different and interesting spaces career wise because
Hmm.
like I am doing less astrology facing work even though I do have the astrology book, but like I have the novel that my agent is currently reading, and I'm more combining astro with witchcraft and publishing and writing and creativity. So it's like it's like one foot in but one foot is in trad pub.
Hmm.
And then Meg is like, I'm writing about tarot, I'm teaching tarot, like very wholly encompassed within occultism. And then you like have a fucking book and like classes and the podcast, but you're in grad school to do something else entirely. So I don't know. I think we're in three really interesting and different places in terms of how much occultism informs or is part of our work
Hmm.
life at the moment.
Totally. Yeah, I do really like the direction that I've moved in terms of the Beco system. I don't think I've ever had a brand before. Maybe this is my first brand, but
That it's the Bigo system though. It's
It's
so
so
cute.
cute.
thank you. Yeah, because it's like, how can I have something that these are all the things I do?
Yeah.
And yeah, might not be a functional business, but it's like a joy of my life. And
Mm.
do I need it to be a functional business? Is always a question that I'm asking. But yeah, it feels nice to me at least to be moving in a direction of like, okay, I'm gonna have this adjacent profession, this new leg of my career that's going to be separate from this, I think is going to be actually really good for me personally and probably professionally as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a cool and interesting example of like work that is so informed by your
Hmm.
spirituality, but
Mhm.
that is not about your spirituality. Like I am
Yeah.
really excited to see how that unfolds as you graduate and all the good stuff.
Yes.
I will say community is so huge in this industry. Like, and so being willing to reach out to people to like make real connections, real conversations that are not just replying to each other on the I love a reply on the internet, but like thank God we've made real friendships. And I think one of the people I'm the most grateful to have met so early in my astrological interest was Teresa Reed, the tarot lady, because Teresa has been doing this full time for 30 plus years. In person, online, everything. And every time I don't know, I so often feel behind or like I'm not far enough along or like what if this had happened or what if this had gone differently or blah blah blah. And every time I talk to Teresa and we have dinner with her whenever she's in New York, she's always just like, you've been in business like full time. Like my full time Jeanna Kadlec Inc. business is only like 5.5 years old. And
Yeah.
to me, that feels like forever. But she's like, first 5 years, you're just figuring out what works. And
Yep.
she has said that so many times over the last year to me. She's like, girl, first 5 years, you're still figuring. I'm like, but I've learned so much. And she's like, you are still in the baby stage. And just like having an elder in the field, just with the real talk and the transparency, being like, it takes the time it takes and it takes a while. That's
Um,
just been like such an antidote to
mhm.
the algorithm, as it were.
That's such a good reminder, and I'm so glad you said that because I always forget it. And every time she says it, I'm like, fuck, right, yeah. I mean, so many of us do the can I make money doing this thing that I love? And I think that especially with services like this and like in these industries, these are things that you can start to learn on your own and that you can go pretty deep with on your own or like with self-study or like taking a course or two. And so it is a thing where people are like, I kind of want to start selling tarot readings or I kind of want to like learn enough astrology that I can start doing things to make money. And you can, sure, you can probably find some people who will pay you to do things. But like to make it a sustainable business that actually supports you and also that you know how to like manage and like handle and figure out what systems can actually work for you so that you're not manually doing every single thing all the time. Like that shit just takes a really long time to build out.
Yeah.
Like it takes forever, and it takes community, it takes talking to people who have been doing this for a long time, it takes having people you can text to be like, I think I just broke my whole website, or can you please read this essay, I feel insane, or like, can you help me tweak this sales page, or like I have friends, B is one of them, I have friends where I'm like, I need to name this, can you please help me name this thing, I don't know what to call this thing, and it's really good to have people in your pocket that can help you with this stuff. But like nobody's doing this in a vacuum, and it's like having elders like Teresa Reed, who has just been such a game changer for us and like such a valuable resource and just wonderful mentor and just an amazing person, to look at her business and be like, okay, someday I want to get there. I want to get to the point where I have like 10 books under my belt and I have a Patreon and like I'm teaching classes and I'm getting invited to do all these things and like tarot is my life. Like that's the career that I'm working towards. But it's taken her like 30 years and I'm like, okay. 6 years in, I got some work to do. I got time.
There's
Like
Yeah.
time.
things take time. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, I'm
Hell
glad you said
yeah.
that.
Totally. Well, we could go on forever,
We
but
could.
please get in our comments and let us know how this is landing. Oh, two little things from me. First of all, if you need help naming something, you reach
Bee's
out
really
to
good at
me.
it.
I love naming things.
Bee and Meg Kane are like my two. Please help me name this. Please God, I don't know what to call this people. So
Yeah, I love it. And then also, I do this in common denominators, the notable numerology, like monthly overviews. At the end, we have community corkboard, and I just put
Mhm.
offerings from the community. So if you ever have an offering, a professional offering that you want to a signal boost for, please send them. You can send them to callyourcoven at Gmail. You can send them to Bee Scolnick at pm.me. But I'm happy to boost that because I do think it's all about community
Yeah,
and helping each other out
yeah.
on this long road of professional craft.
The long
Yeah.
so road.
So long, so road.
Okay, okay, okay. No, I will. Yeah, just last but not least, we talked about the Grove, but it's
Mhm.
open for registration through the end of
Yeah.
August. So sales page, you can check out more info. That'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my Hermitage that is my monthly membership program. You can sign up anytime, you can leave anytime, but it is really geared towards people who are, familiar with the basics of tarot and are really looking to personalize their relationship with the cards and personalize their practice in a way that actually feels reflective of them. I think it's great to have like standardized meanings and understand correspondences and have that as a baseline, but I think there is a lot of value in finding ourselves in the cards and knowing how to tell our own stories with the cards and really figuring out what makes the cards sing for us. And the Hermitage is really filled with resources that are going to help you be able to do that. So you can join that anytime. I am going to be running my River Styx program on using tarot to process grief, collective grief, and personal grief later this year. So if you've been on the wait list for that, I'm going to do a mini little container like I did last time, called Sticks and Stones, which Meg Kane named, and also and then I'll be running River Styx as well this fall too. And then of course we've got the Grove. So yeah, lots of cool things happening in our world. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the next time we talk to you, it'll be September.
Lord.
We will be celebrating our anniversary here at the
Yeah.
Coven. So, thank you for a beautiful second year of Call Your
Yeah.
Coven. What a wild ride it's been,
Truly.
and truly so grateful. Thanks for being in our coven.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you.